All right, so why don't we get started if the manager's ready?
Yes, sir.
Um, We know that both Andy and Terry are on the way. We'll be here before long. And we got a lot of ground to cover, so Marcus, the first item on the agenda, I think, is the Community Service Board presentation. Is that right? Not Community Services Board, I mean the
CDBG.
CDBG.
Yes, a follow-up from last week. Okay, so we'll have the Budget Director, Sabrina Joy Hall, to make that presentation.
Actually, is
Okay.
good afternoon. I'm Julie Pierce with the Division of Grants Management, and I'm here today to talk to you about the proposed fiscal year 2012 annual plan. Last week at the budget session, Council expressed a desire to receive an update on the FY12 annual plan, and so the purpose for today is to provide you with that overview, to address the questions that were raised last week, and to address any questions you may have today. So we'll begin by taking a look at the entire proposed budget for the city as a whole. As you can see, the general fund makes up about 70% of that. Non-general fund is about 15%, followed by CIP. And then for the purpose of today's discussion, the HUD block grants, we're talking about funds of approximately 1% of the overall budget for 12. The programs we'll discuss today are allocated by HUD on a formula basis, and federal regulations govern the use of these funds. The HUD formula programs include the Community Development Block Grant, the Home Investment Partnership Program, and the Emergency Shelter Grant.
Could you speak up just a little bit?
Sure. Again, the programs that we're discussing today, the formula programs, are the Community Development Block Grant Program, the Home Investment Partnership Program, and the Emergency Shelter Grant Program. The Community Development Block Grant Program has programs that promote community development activities, including affordable housing, anti-poverty programs, and infrastructure development. The Home also, and CDBG is one of the longest running programs with HUD. It's been established since 1974, and the city has been receiving funds under this program for about 32 years. The Home Investment Partnership Program, or HOME, has been a funding source for the city for about 18 years, and this program helps develop affordable housing. The activities funded under the HOME program include homebuyer assistance, rental assistance, and residential construction and rehabilitation.
Yeah, it's right there. It's a third one.
The third program is the Emergency Shelter Grant Program, and has also been funded here at the local level for about 18 years. This program provides basic shelter and essential supportive services in the forms of short-term homeless prevention assistance to prevent homelessness or to eliminate homelessness. These programs are designed to benefit low to moderate income individuals. So for fiscal year 2012, we're looking at resources of about $7.4 million. The city contracts with NRHA for these programs, and they've received the majority of CDBG and HOME funds. Of this allocation, CDBG is the largest component, followed by HOME and NDSG. The city is set to incur some decreases in the FY 2012 allocation compared to fiscal year 2011. Based on notification from HUD, we'll see a 16.5% decrease in CDBG funding, approximately 12% in HOME funding. However, the ESG program will see a 25% increase. In developing the annual plan, we're required to follow our citizen participation plan, which is approved by HUD. And the plan outlines the level of citizen involvement that's required. The annual plan development process is extensive, and it takes several months to complete, beginning each year with solicitations for applications for the 3 HUD programs. The first group that reviews these grant applications is the internal work group. We have about 11 members on the We have about 11 members in the internal work group, and they are representatives from city departments such as the Department of Human Services, the Planning Department, Grants and Budget staff, and we even have a representative from NRHA. The internal work group reviews the applications and then provides recommendations that are sent on to the Citizen Advisory Group. The Citizen Advisory Group has representatives determined by council and has a varied membership to include representation for the homeless community and for youth and education. The Citizen Advisory Group also reviews these applications, and their recommendations are forwarded to the Planning Commission. During this process each year, we meet with the Planning Commission and provide them an update on upcoming funding, and we include a work session where we provide detailed discussion and information about our recommendations. We also have a public hearing with the Planning Commission where we solicit input from the community on the needs that have been addressed and the recommendations that are being brought forth. New for this year, we had input from the Norfolk Homeless Consortium. As you know from reviewing your information, there are a number of homeless programs proposed for funding in our plan. The Norfolk Homeless Consortium input was requested in order to establish a framework for how funding could best be allocated to make all of our homeless programs more efficient. With monitoring and reporting, there are several entities that provide some level of oversight for these programs, including city staff, internal auditors, the external auditors such as KPMG, and HUD. The external auditors and city staff review these programs on an ongoing basis and annually. City oversight includes quarterly reporting to track expenditures and performance, reimbursement processing, and the preparation of our CAPER report, which is submitted to HUD at the end of each program year to update them on the accomplishments that we've achieved. Under our new administration, as we begin the process for fiscal year 13, we are going to maintain our history of continuous improvement, and we're going to move forward with the intent of ensuring that the city is getting the best value for these grant dollars, and that the annual plan priorities link with council priorities. We will also seek opportunities to increase effectiveness and efficiency with all of the HUD programs. So we begin talking with one of the programs that are funded through the annual plan, and that's the CDBG program. There are two main components for this program: project use and public service. Project use activities are associated with housing and infrastructure improvement, and it can include activities such as homeowner rehabilitation, property acquisition, and ADA ramp installation. Public service, which is capped at 15%, provides supportive services to low to moderate income individuals, and it can include activities such as public housing and education, employment training, and homeless assistance. ESG funding categories include social services, shelter operating costs, and homeless prevention activities. Under social services, there may be offerings such as case management and substance abuse counseling. Under shelter operating costs, there will be rent and utility expenses paid and maintenance for existing homeless shelters. And under the category of homeless prevention activities, we have short-term and first month's rent and utility payments or security deposits, all aimed at eliminating or preventing homelessness. The home program has three categories as well: homebuyer assistance, homeowner rehabilitation, and tenant-based rental assistance. Homebuyer assistance is financial assistance provided to income-eligible first-time homebuyers in the form of down payment assistance and closing costs. Homeowner rehabilitation is financial assistance also to income-eligible residents who own their homes so that they can make improvements to their structure. The tenant-based rental assistance program provides financial assistance to individual households for rents, security deposits, and utility deposits, again, with the goal of ending or eliminating homelessness. And that brings us to a discussion or a slide on CHODOs, and this was brought up last week for discussion, and I wanted to give you some information about what CHODOs are and some of the requirements that surround them. A CHODO, or a Community Housing Development Organization, is a private, nonprofit organization that works to develop affordable housing in the neighborhood that it serves. 15% of our home allocation must be set aside for CHODOs. If the funds are not allocated to CHODOs, or if they're allocated to CHODOs and go unspent at the end of the program period, HUD will recapture those dollars. They are not available to be used on other home program activities. Norfolk currently has 2 certified CHODOs, which include Beacon Light, which serves the Southside community, and Plumline Ministries, which serves Central Ramilton. The city is working with NRHA and HUD to increase the number of CHODOs that we have and to expand the capacity so that we can have more certified organizations available to develop affordable housing here in Norfolk. We do have some organizations that have expressed interest in obtaining Cholo certification. And just to give you some information, the Cholo certification process is coordinated by NRHA on behalf of the city, but the city does have the authority to certify and decertify Cholos. There are some components that are required to be met in order to establish yourself as a Cholo. There's legal requirements, which include being organized under state or local law, excuse me, and having a nonprofit status. The organizational component dictates that 1/3 of the board members must represent the low-income community, and no more than 1/3 of its members can be public officials. And with respect to capacity and experience, the organization, when seeking Cholo status, must demonstrate at least a year of experience in serving the community they want to represent, or demonstrate capacity of key staff to carry out the home-assisted activities that they're planning. And that's what I have for you today, and I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
You said you have 2 certified.
Yes, sir.
Park Place is not certified?
Park Place lost its designation of about a year and a half ago.
So why are we budgeting?
We're not budgeting anything.
We got nothing on that?
Nothing, no, sir.
I'm sorry.
Well, then, bottom line, it's got, we got,
What you see Barclay, where you see a 0
I got
or
you.
a Park Place, that money has gone into, if I'm correct, that money is going in the remaining Cholo set aside.
Yes.
Right. And so, like I said, I think that depending on where you are in the community that you're in, that Cholos could be a positive. When I look at Berkeley and Beacon Life Civic League, because it's one that, it's a civic league, and it has people in the community from it. Built some great houses over there. We do agree, Mr. Rick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they continue to build year in and year out, and provide opportunities for homeowners in that community. And so, again, I think it's a plus depending on where you are. But I've spoken with the executive director as well as the chairman of North Redevelopment Housing Authority to ask whether or not they were in a position or were they going to give Plumline any other lots over there, and they're not, because again, one of the things that we had talked about is when they developed that gill and that land, the land that is over there, they wanted to create planned development and put it out for RFP and generate revenue from that land. And so if someone is not going to be building anything, I don't think that this body should be in a position to just give folk money that is not going to be used. In the absence of that, I do think that by putting that money in the set aside, the remainder Cholo set aside, if Berkeley was to deplete their the amount that was allocated for them in this fiscal year, they could use some of that set aside money. Or if we have other Cholos to come online, then they could also utilize those resources. But I just don't think we should be paying people that are not doing business in the city.
Now, you talking about Plumline?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand that. That's St. Paul's, Old St. Paul's Church and Grace Episcopal Church. So what is it that they're not doing?
They're not building anything.
Because one of the things that that I had been asked about were some lots that they're trying to get to released so they could build something.
They're not releasing anything. Well, they're not releasing anything.
The housing authority is not.
Right.
Okay.
Plumline was told a couple of years ago, and they got the last few infield lots, that everything else, because NRHA has a guild in it, and that everything would go out for bid. That land would be, that they needed to recoup the funds for that land to be able to do some other things. And so they understood that. They didn't like it, but they understood that.
Well, they're not confined to central Bremerton. You know, we have several lots over in Huntersville that I guess Plum Line and Beacon Light could move into. I don't think there's any geographical boundary. I don't think. I could be wrong.
No, it used to be, but
Yeah.
it was, but it's not now.
Yeah, okay. I'm not really familiar with that little argument, so I'm not even, you know.
All right, anything else? Can I ask you, does Habitat for Humanity, they made no application for any funds, it's true, so they don't get any. But a couple of years ago, they were doing some business in the city.
They have two projects that were funded in, I think, fiscal year 2010, and they are working with the Housing Authority to establish their total certification.
You're doing one in Willoughby and
Doing
one
one
in
in
East
Willoughby.
Ocean View.
But we're not supporting them with any of these funds?
They did not make an application this year.
Okay. I just didn't, so they actually are building a couple houses right now?
They're doing one down in Willoughby and one in East Ocean View.
Okay, good, all right. Because there was a sense that, I think at one time they got the notion that maybe the city wasn't supportive of Habitat for Humanity, and I wanted to
No, they
make sure that we
did
are.
their funding in 10 and did not apply for 11, and they have not applied for 12.
All right,
And Norfolk now didn't apply for,
They did not, they were still using the allocation that they had for the previous year.
so that can roll over?
Yes, ma'am, the funds for home.
Is there any way to challenge the HUD income limits on those programs?
Not without thinking a change in the legislation. The legislation governs income limits, and each year they're updated and put out by HUD. They're used nationally.
In my understanding, any of this money in the Home Investment Partnership Program that's not allocated and used goes back to HUD.
After the grant period expires, so we have 5 years to use the grant funds, and anything that remains unspent is then turned back in to HUD.
So if we had some kind of workable plan from Plum Line, and I'm not really sure like who the organization is, but if we had some kind of workable plan that could show some use of this money. I mean, I'm with you, Mr. Burford, I don't see giving them money just to be giving the money if they're not doing with it what they're required to do with it. If they've applied for the money, have they given us any indication as to what they're going to do with it? I mean, like, if the lots that they're looking at are not available anymore, then have they told us what they're gonna do?
This year, for the funds that they have requested, they're identifying 2 homes or 2 units that they intend to make available to maybe 2 affordable units they plan to make available to residents, to Norfolk residents. But that's the plan for this year.
For this fiscal
For
year, not next?
for FY12, we're talking about fiscal year 12.
Okay, and do we know if that plan is a workable plan in terms of the lots and the property and everything like, I mean, do we know if that's something that's actually doable?
Having, with the application they put in the units that they've identified, they were not specific in being able to pinpoint particularly where they would be developing. So, given Mr. Burford's comments regarding what would be made available to them would dictate greatly whether or not they're going to be able to accomplish this.
Kim, you have a three-year history, right?
For
For the 2 chotos. And
I have history with it, yes.
so we could make that available to you.
okay, well, let's, any other questions there?
No, all I simply would say is, again, by putting that money in the remaining Choto set aside, if they were to come up with parcels,
And then the
then
money would be
they-
available.
Right, the money would be available.
Right. There's no sense in
Again,
funding it if we're not
Berkeley
doing anything.
was to continue to build out, what have you.
Okay.
That way that we're not, in the federal government's eyes, that we're not giving folk money that at the end of the day, they're building 1 house a year. That's $100,000. And then they sell a lot. And then they get administrative costs on top of that, built in, administrative costs built in when because they're the middleman, and so.
All right, we'll make that change.
I can understand.
Now we'll go on to the budget discussion. We had about 43 speakers, I think, at the budget hearing. We heard from a lot of people about the school board budget, about the operating and capital needs, and also about the community services board. Maybe the manager, first of all, could tell us if there have been any changes in the budget since we last talked, like any improvements in revenues, or if there have been any cost changes. And then can you just respond a little bit to the issues about public schools and about their funding? Because we just got a letter from the school board saying that they have now received, they've identified $500,000 in federal impact aid, plus another $322 in healthcare savings that would fully fund their budget request. So they're not asking for any additional dollars from us. So let's just talk about the operating side. Is that the correct understanding there?
That's exactly right, Mayor.
Okay. Now,
Yes.
are there, just so we, in the interest of full disclosure, are there, how much savings are they going to actually receive from the healthcare? Do you have any idea?
The, actually, we handed out a budget in brief for you, much bigger version. And I believe under ED1, education, there's a first shot at, I don't know, maybe a more comprehensive look, if you will, at schools. So I'll just start off with your question, Mayor, in terms of the operating budget. So that would be ED1, page 1 of 5.
Right.
If you start to take a look at the budget breakdown, what you will see here are a couple of key areas. One is, you're exactly right, in terms of the closing that $822,000 gap. A piece of it was additional federal impact aid. Another piece of it was healthcare savings. The city, when we started the healthcare negotiations, we had built in about a 10% increase. We're at closer to 6.5%. The one thing that, again, in all fairness to schools, I'd like to have an opportunity to speak with the superintendent. But even in their analysis, they're going from 10% to 8%. And there's still, in my opinion, a little bit more movement in terms of what the overall savings is.
So they saved $322,000 from 10 to 8, and if they went from, we're looking at like 6.5 or less, right?
That's exactly right.
So there could be another $250,000.
There could be some additional savings there, yes, sir. It's a consortium, so we should be all going on the same type of plan. I will say that it depends on what they've done. For instance, we've absorbed 100% of the cost for one part of our plan versus we've passed on 50% of the cost for the other. So I'd love to have a conversation with the superintendent. There's also movement or a potential discussion about just how sales tax is looked at, how it's captured, what the savings or the additional costs may be with sales tax. We've had staff discussions about that, whether or not that increase is really $1.1 million or could it be something less than that. And also in terms of the green initiatives, which is great, a couple of years ago, in terms of energy savings for the schools, we're starting to see, and Denise Thompson's done an excellent job for the city, we're starting to see some of the savings. That was in the area of about $800,000. We did have staff-to-staff discussions. A good piece of that has already been captured. I don't know if 800,000 of it, 700,000, but the question would be, as we continue the conversation on the operating side, is there some additional capacity in terms of, one, the healthcare savings, and what else could be done in terms of how the budget is structured in general?
All right, and I wouldn't change a nickel from what I just want everyone to understand that it looks like they've got more money than they originally asked for, which I think is a good thing. I wouldn't take a nickel away from that. I just wanted to make sure we all understand that they may have more in the way of health savings, they may have more in the way of energy savings, which is good.
Yes.
And more then they may get more sales tax revenue.
Well, the reduction may not be as high as initially, yes.
Right.
So that's more or less as you said, more staff-to-staff discussions that have been going on all along. in terms of the school operating budget.
And from a total budget, looking at what you've handed out, their budget has gone down like 1.9% from what it was a year ago.
Yes.
Do we know, what is their student body projected?
Well, that should actually be a part of one of the pieces of the breakdown. We do have a, if you go to page 4 or 5, a couple of things, Mayor. One is that we should have a chart someone here that looks at the average daily membership is going down over the 5-year forecast process. A couple of things came out, and I will say on page 4 or 5, under this ED1, there's just so many different ways to look at school funding, okay? One of the things that we discussed, I believe last week, is just even when you start to do a comparison of what is a local contribution, it's very difficult to make an apples to apples comparison because some jurisdictions put debt service in there. Some jurisdictions do not put debt service. What I will say that there are, again, many ways to look at this. One way is to look at the total per pupil expenditures. For the most up-to-date data that we have from FY 2010, you can see Norfolk's at 11,324, which when we start to compare that with other localities, that we have more per pupil expenditures than others. I will say that's all in all
Oh, did you
fairness.
see that? That's the comment you made. You remember?
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like at least our heart is where it's supposed to be.
Yes, sir. Yes.
We're spending more than any other city in Hampton Roads to educate our kids.
Does
So
that
when we,
You know,
Does that dollar amount include the federal and state?
that's what I'm saying. In all fairness,
Okay.
that's all
Right,
in.
and when you look at here, what you see are Hampton and Norfolk, and I'm not trying to downplay because we do give a lot of money, but because we're an urban core, we're urban center, and also we get extra funding for Title I schools. So, I'd be more curious to see our actual dollar amount from Norfolk taxpayers per pupil as opposed to take the federal and state out of that picture and see what we're spending per pupil as a city, not federal and state.
I would agree, because you and I talked about this. Mayor Freeman and I got about 200 emails this week from people from a standard form about the fact that our percentage,
90.
yeah, and when I mentioned this to Marcus, he said, well, we're not necessarily looking apples to apples here. So I would like an apple to apple comparison, and so exactly what Tommy's brought up here is that, there are other variables in here. Let's look at something that absolutely equates, the amount of budget that's the same citywide. And my concern too, there's no capital in here, am I correct?
You're right. So that's again, I just wanted to
Because
give you
this
two
truly,
examples.
what this appeal was about the fact that our school buildings, as we all know, are in dreadful shape and how much we are contributing toward that. And I just would like to see, I think we're doing, as well as we can in many ways. Well, maybe I shouldn't say as well as we can. I mean, I think we're trying. But it would be helpful to really have something that clearly exemplifies what we're doing in comparison to other regions, without all these mixed variables.
But that's a very complex formula. when
I
you
know
go down
that is,
road.
but we're a
Because you-
complex
Right,
organization.
but you
We ought to
can't,
be able to figure this
you
out.
would have to look at real estate. I mean, when you look at, let's say, take Virginia Beach, for example. Look at the number of Title I schools they don't have, but they got more people paying into the park than we do.
Right.
And so, I mean, I would love to see that, but how do you get there and be able to show that as it lays out when we look at the number of people we have paying in the park opposed to the people that they have paying in the park?
Well, Marcus, you're the numbers guy, you maybe can tell us. And if in fact it's impossible for you to demonstrate it to us equitably, then I'd like to hear that. But I just would like somebody to tell me that they're trying to do that.
Right, and I know you want answers as opposed to excuses, which I will not try to give you excuses. It is very difficult. One thing I will say that even when you start to look at jurisdictions across the region, for instance, we account for the state dollars in our general fund budget. So the 190 million or so makes our budget get up to 793 million. We're kind of sort of the minority with that. the majority of the localities in Hampton Roads don't even show the state piece in the general operating budget, so it becomes difficult. I will say, we have about $15 million that we don't even show in terms of our school contribution. The $104.5 million doesn't include nurses, doesn't include maintenance, it doesn't even include the debt service. So it is complicated. We'll try our best to give you as close to an apples to apples, but it becomes very complicated.
And I understand that you're talking about a school system that has taken over a $45 million hit from the state in the last 2 years. And every time that hit comes, it takes away services in our school. I take, for example, today, the nurse at Lake Taylor High School is a shared nurse. And we had a new student enrolling from another school district that is diabetic, and she was there with her mom to bring all of her needles and stuff for the nurse. The nurse was not in the building because she had to go over to Lake Taylor Middle School because they had an incident over there. So yes, we are funding that nurse, but because of previous cuts, the services have gone down. And I'm sure you'll get more emails when Maury parents find out that Jack Baker's position was cut in this budget at Maury, and they cut the deans now at the high school level. And so you continue the cut. Last year, they cut all the security officers in the schools down to 4, and we talk about safety at the schools. And this keep on cutting. As much as I'd like to see them cut more of the higher positions, which they have, they're cutting more of the services. Now it's going to be some of the tradesmen that fix the school, and they announced 160 cuts. But my concern is actually more of the CIP budget and taking, there's been a commitment from the city to build 5 schools in 6 years. And I guess if I go off of the article in the Compass, we're going down to 3 schools. And I mean, we just keep on delaying it. And every single one of us have a school building in our ward that is in dire need of repair. So, I mean, this is citywide. And what was the number? Over $800 million needed to fix the current condition of the schools. My concern is I looked at last year's budget book, and we had pledged, I think there was $20 million every year for the next 5 years to go to that, and it was roughly about that.
Marcus pulled about $15 million out of the CIP over a 5-year period, because I went back and looked at it again last night.
Okay.
And that would have built the other school that you would
Right.
have gotten this.
Yeah, I just hate sending that message
Yeah,
that
'cause
it's
I really
not.
want to have a discussion about the capital needs, but we'll get off the operating thing then. I mean, we've satisfied their request. I think you can look at it, Terry, a lot of different ways.
You can, absolutely.
I mean, I think in my world, what it comes down to, how much are you actually spending, this whole pot of money that we get, how much are we actually spending to educate each child? And in Norfolk, at least I am very confident in saying we're spending more, than any other locality. Now, the question, I mean, are you actually raising more money locally to do that? The answer is no. And, why is that? Because of this very complicated index that everybody uses because they support communities that aren't as wealthy as other communities. So they try to level out, if you will, the education that the kids are getting by the state giving us more money and the feds, and that's the way it should be. We just had an article in the paper about the per capita income in Norfolk being lower than it is in other communities, and they, I'm not sure that's a fair way. I mean, it was the household income was lower than anybody else's, and I don't agree with those numbers. All these numbers have things you can argue about, but what it shows you is our well's a little, like Anthony was going to, our well's not as deep when we go to get money to do things that are important. But if the feds in the state are going to come in and help us, then we ought to at least be able to say, look, we're spending more than anybody else. But we're spending more to educate our kids, which goes into teacher salaries and everything else. This tough stuff about what you just talked about, Tommy, is just it's really hard for all of us to take, because you heard at the public hearing, everybody blames us for this, when it's the state who took all that money away. If you look at the chart that Marcus has given us, we've gone up more in local funding for schools than any other city in Hampton Roads over the past 2 years. So, and even in very tough times. So, all right, now getting off of that. the capital thing, Marcus, you gotta give us some options, I think, in this budget. The language that you use in the budget about school construction in the capital budget, where you say the goal is to build one school every 3 years, we'll just fall further and further behind. We need a plan. We need like a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan, and we need a plan to build schools. Okay, I mean, to really get some schools built. And whether we have to shift some money for some other projects, or whether, you think you can find some money, at least we need to show, I think, more than a good faith effort towards, in this budget, towards keeping, the construction moving. But the other thing, Tommy, that the school board's got to tell us, they got to give us a plan. Sure. They can't just say, give us money. I mean, they got to say, if we put another $20 million in this budget this year, right now, they couldn't spend it. And that's Marcus's issue. Why would I make our bond rating agencies think we're going to spend $20 million next year when we know they can't do it? They don't have a construction plan, and that's probably all of our fault.
I thought plans have been developed for Campostella, Larchmont, and Ocean View. I thought
they have said to us, we would like to build the following schools: Campostella, and then it was up between Ocean View and Larchmont, and then and now they've closed the Dream Keepers, so they got to do something in there to build one school so they can close another. And then at the end of the day, there was Tidewater Park. That was like the 5th or 6th school down if you had Crossroads on it.
Right. But I think they have designs for
We
those
need-
schools.
We have never seen them, and the other
I
thing
think when
is,
you use the term plan,
Yeah.
plan could be, gosh, this would be
This
next
is
in
next
Rockport.
because-
Two, these are the architectural plans.
I
And
think they have some architectural.
I don't think so, Tommy. We have never seen it.
Because
Yeah.
Tommy, you would see those costs because the AED
Right.
costs are
Yeah.
pretty
Maybe
significant.
they're just renderings.
Right now, if they wanted, if we said, go build the next, tell us what you're gonna do about Campostella, they don't have an answer.
And even when they came in and we had that joint meeting, they had the list of schools, and Dr. Bentley said that it was in no particular order.
But
They
it's-
were just, it was
it's a list.
those
They were in an
schools.
order at one time.
Right.
I know they
Right.
were at one
Good
time,
job.
but when he came in here, when we had
C3.
the school board meeting, he specifically said that those schools were not in order because Mr. Riddick asked about Campostella being the next school to be built.
In all of our previous budget discussions, Campostella was the next school.
Wait,
Let me take this conversation a little deeper. We can't just continue to just be, I understand this, if we're gonna build schools, I'm all for building schools. But we cannot build $20 and $30 million buildings and they set dormant for 3 months out of the year. If we're gonna build these facilities, we need to be smart about them, and they need to be, the community need to have access to these buildings. I look at, we built Coleman Place, and the community was assured that they would have an opportunity to be able to use that facility. To date, they don't get to use that facility. They were told that they'd be able to come around the other side and have access to this meeting room, okay? But yet, we get other folk from outside the city that are able to come and rent the building for all types of activities, but the people right there in the community don't get it out. You got computers, you got libraries, and you got a gymnasium. Right in these communities that our kids could be in there doing something. But nope, these buildings are closed in the summer months and they're closed in the evening time. So we need to also develop a strategy and a way that we can utilize these buildings where they become a part of the community and not just build buildings that cannot be used other than from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That just doesn't make sense.
That's gotta
We
come
gotta
out
do
on the
business
table.
differently.
We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
But Marcus, you want to explain
Sure.
some of the school?
Yeah, so
That's a piece
I
of
guess
it.
the schools, every 3 years, so let me try to clear it up a little bit. The way that we looked at this just is, how does it take soup to nuts to do construction? So basically a year to plan, 2 years to build. So what you would see in this CIP, you would basically see, and on page, section C3, page 1 of 3, you would start off with Crossroads.
Are you in your old budget book or what you handed out?
Just what I handed out. So this should be, this is more of a display
I got it, okay.
of what would occur. So if you start off with, and forgive me for what's in parentheses with 1 and 2, that Campostella, our understanding, is the next school The question is there some movement around? But let's just say those are the 5 schools that were discussed at that February 22nd meeting. So the concept would be if you come down to the table and you go to FY 2012 and you know we have $9.8 million in the budget. 7.6 million is enough to finish Crossroads. So now, as the mayor said, it's not like we have a construction document, so it's going to take some time to design the next school. So even if you said design 4 schools, to make the math easy, let's do 2 million times 4, so $8 million. You know, I'm designing 4 schools, but if I put 30 million in this, I'm not sure that we would eat up capacity when we don't have a construction document. So it's more the concept of what's the plan. So in 2012, you see 2.2 million by school number 2. You see in the footnote, there's over $7 million of previous funding for school number 2. So already for school number 2, you have 2.2 million plus that 7.25. So we're convinced in 2013 that additional $7.5 million would be enough to construct school number 2. School number 3, if you go to 2014, you see that $5 million by school number 2. The way we're doing that is furniture and fixtures, okay? So I can go to, construction, get it done, and then we'll furnish it. School number 2 would start, school number 3 would start in 2014, same concept, 2.2 million,
Yeah, but that's the
14
problem.
million, then
You're gonna have
5.
to pull school number 3, you're gonna have to pull that into FY 2013 in order to move these things forward, I think.
So you're right. So the question would be, if everybody agrees with this process of you design it, then you construct it, the question is, what's the impact on our capacity to shift school number 3 instead of the design money being in 2014 to move to 2013? And that's things that we can get back, roll up our sleeves and try to figure out how.
We want you to
Because at this
design
rate,
and
it makes-
construct in the same year.
Yeah, it makes it sound like we can only do one thing at a time.
No, you can design
No,
one
no,
school.
I'm saying you can build one and plan for another
Right,
at the
that's
same
what I'm
same
saying.
time.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
number
And
one.
are we
Fine.
absolutely sure that there are no plans? Has anybody talked to the school system and asked them if they have plans on this,
Plans on what?
on some of these schools?
Yes.
You're talking about working.
Working plans for some of these schools that
Which
are ready
ones?
to be put out for
What school? Because they got,
Any of the
there's
lists.
a,
any of the ones on the list.
Tommy, to do a plan,
Right.
first you have to have a RFP for an architect, then you're spending almost $2 million just for building those
we would-
working plans. So
they'd be-
this
they'd
is
be
not
in the
something
community
you
with
do
public-
down the road.
Right, no, I
without
understand that.
knowing.
I've just, there's things that I've heard at some of these schools, that there
Well-
are plans sitting in some of these schools.
That is absolutely.
So I don't know what
the
they're,
concepts on play.
I don't know. That's what, but we
That
had
cannot
coined,
be, because it's such a
Right.
complicated and expensive issue to actually make working plans that, we would be seeing it on our budget and we would know about it because of RFPs and assignment of architects.
that makes sense, and I understand that, but if we're the body that appoints the school board, and we know that this is such a pressing issue, and the school board is not giving us the direction, and this goes back to the communication issues that Terry has brought up multiple times, that we just don't meet with them enough, we don't talk to them, and we don't tell them our concerns. And there's no reason, this has been talked about for years, and why it just continues to get delayed. There's a disconnect or something there where this is not making its way, and every year, we just keep on pushing it off and off. And we're not going to attract families to Norfolk if we don't start building our school capacity. We're getting ready to hear a general plan. And, for the next, how many years is the general plan for? Schools have to be part of that. The families are not staying in Norfolk. They're going to other places.
That's
And
not true. The census just told us that's not true. Well,
I'm being in general.
Well, but you're also looking at the population of our students
So
and
it's going
decreasing.
down.
It is in every.
All right, well, anyway, let's just make our students that are here today should have buildings that do not leak. They should have computers that work. It is an absolute disgrace, I think, that our children go to school in buildings that leak. And, we all feel that. I'm not saying that gosh, how come you don't feel that? I know you all feel that. I know every one of us feel that.
Tommy, and I don't disagree with you, by the way.
Right,
Because
yeah.
I
But
know
I
people make
feel like-
choices about where they live because.
I
of
can
school.
guarantee you that if you told the school board, we are prepared to pay for you to build X number of schools in this many years, you can count on it, that they would have that list done and they would hire the architectural firms. I think it's communication and we haven't been clear in saying, okay, the money is there, go for it.
But I
I don't want to beat ourselves up too badly on this one. They have decided, and which I think is correct, that build the next school should be Campus Stella. But if you asked them today where they were going to build it, I'm not sure they'd know the answer. That's why they couldn't have a plan. I mean, because whether they're going to build it on the same site where the present school is, which I'm told they don't want to do that,
Right.
so they want to build it, so which means they're going to have to move those kids out of that building someplace else while they tear down the old building and then rebuild another.
So that's why they said they wanted to do Dream Keepers first, so they could move the kids from Campus Stella
But
over
it-
to the other existing building.
But it
and then-
changes.
But I
Yeah,
thought
so-
MGT had the study done and they said which building should go. And I don't, if we're a data-driven city, then look at the data from that MGT study. If that's what we're supposed to be funding projects off of, then go to that study and whatever is supposed to be number one on that list, as they indicated, then you start with that. And I'm sure it has all these schools, but they paid for that study.
We
And
don't
it
make that
indicated all
call, though. They make that call.
I understand that, but that's where the communication, we need to have another meeting with the school board and we should see that study.
Well, like I said, I mean, for
That's
me,
what
the issue is, I mean, we said that we want to make sure our kids be in new buildings and what have you, but again, I don't want to see buildings that kids just use 9 months out the year, and they have no access to these buildings 12 months out the year. I mean, we talk about health, we talk about, I'll take an example in my community, Northview. You know, we have kids that we talk about obesity and health issues, but yet we won't even let the community use the track, let alone the building. But yet that's a $30 million facility that the taxpayers have paid for.
But didn't they put a track around the school to meet that? That
No,
was,
excuse me, they paid for that. That's $30 million. That's taxpayer dollars. You can go to any other community around the country, and they're able to utilize the school. The school is a part of the community, and the community is a part of the school.
no, I understand that,
And
but I'm
so
asking you,
if they
didn't
can
they
have-
put a,
if they
didn't
can
they
have-
put a track around Norview because?
If they can have Relay for Life every year on that track, they can let the community use that track for a few hours a day to exercise as well.
They did
Okay?
Relay for Life 2 years there, and it's no longer there because Relay for Life tore up the track. And so they moved it
Look, there's no
to
sense in
another
us doing it.
location.
I think it's
See,
a good
let's-
point, but it's,
Yeah,
let's
let's go back to the budget.
let's-
And do we in fact want to change, or, I mean, isn't that what we're
Yeah, I'm
discussing?
saying,
Whether we want to accelerate the
We
funding?
want to pull it forward into 2013, the planning money, the 2,200,000, and pull that whole line forward, Marcus. Find a way to do it, okay? And if it means something else has got us, that we have to deal with that, or whether you can just do this and whether there's enough capacity within what our rating agencies will allow us just to pull that number forward, then, you find a way to deal with it, because I think we all are sitting around the table believe we're not dealing with the capital needs of the system as, as aggressively as we should.
Mr. Mayor, we will have, that would be a part of the conversation about the utilization of these.
Absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely.
I
But
think
there's no
you're
sense
right
for us
on.
to be, arguing about it here.
I agree with you 100%.
So we have, Marcus, a mechanism in place for dealing with assets they've given back to the city. I mean, you might have a school sitting there between Stewart, Meadowbrook, and Coronado. We could sell it, whatever we're gonna do. Are we studying, what are we gonna do? I mean, we're sitting there, I see we're still, Stewart has to stay open because it's a polling place. I mean, is there some way, I mean, to get rid of these assets, turn these assets into money?
Right, so,
Crazy, that's the way of
to answer your
it.
question, no, there's not a plan right now. That's a plan that we're working on, because as you see at the bottom of page 1 of 3, and the top of 2 of 3, while we have Stewart, somewhere over the course of the next, year, we are going to get somewhere between 4 and 6 additional schools. And the question becomes, what kind of shape are those schools in? Or is it just going to be an additional operating expense for the city in terms of keeping electricity on, water on, things of that nature? So that's what we're working on now, in terms of what is the right plan to present back to this council.
But the one we've already got, we need to have a plan to turn into what? Cash or asset, it would seem to be.
And even at that, we can price the building according to the condition and sell it.
We do something with it, we tear it down, sell it to
Yes.
the developer, we can utilize it.
Yes.
We don't have to maintain it.
Everybody wants to tear down Stewart, raise their hand.
No, we don't.
What do you want to turn it into?
Anything that it will remain
I mean, you
intact.
have Oakwood out there that goes batting back and forth, and I'm not.
Ask me how I
their
really
judgment,
feel.
but There's a, probably not one of our business parks
Right.
that space.
Maybe turn it into a
Had a
condo.
standing ovation with that comment last night at the city.
We're gonna have to do it sooner than later.
Get the civic
Right.
center.
I mean, we need
Next
to-
couple,
we
next
need to-
month or so.
We need to push them to say, we're not gonna use that school, we need to plan on what's gonna happen to it.
I think
There
there,
could be a couple of new schools.
I think it's Stewart, I think there could be tax credits available for the renovation of Stewart.
Stewart's been there, what, 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
At least
Oh, no.
if we
It's been
act,
used as.
you know, actively, you know, if we, there are some folks who do that stuff for livings, you know, who could take it to a school like Stewart and completely rehab it and get the tax credits to turn it into a,
Show
you know,
place.
showplace. She said
I
that.
think that needs to be a priority to deal with assets. And now, we talked about it, other assets the city has.
All right, so you're gonna do that, and then we'll kick it around again next week.
Yes.
Okay. Can we talk about the community services board, because we heard the second most comments about that. And I know that's in your handout, which we just got.
You're right.
What page is that?
E6.
What is it?
E6. What's interesting that I was looking for and I found, and it's now in this, which is budget, which is something in this handout, which is something that I think Terry would like. The overall budget for the Community Services Board is 26.5 million, right? So if we were to agree with the manager's request to take $1 million away, you're talking about a what percent cut? What is 1 million of 26?
Less than 4%.
Oh, it's about, what is 1% out of 26? 2%?
You take it.
Yeah, it's like 3%?
3 point something.
Less than 4.
It's less than 4. And of an overall budget. The city, I reminded, only pays about 14% of their budget anyway. As I recall, when we had that big discussion about, you know, who does the CSB belong to? And we were told we only pay 14% of their budget, so. But you want to talk a little more about this, because there was an article in the paper where you were quoted, or it was suggested you had agreed to come up with some money.
Sure. So let's start. In terms of the CSB, I would suggest there are 3 issues out here. One is whether or not it's right now, it's a good decision to study whether or not the CSB should remain as it is or to come in under the city structure. I believe the second piece would be the cut, the $1 million cut. What I will say is if you look at the top of page 204, when you start to look at the match, what's required from the city is about a little less than $1 million. That's the required match. Clearly, no one's suggesting that the city only provide the required match. So instead of $999,407, we've been closer to the $3.8 million range. So again, the question becomes the cut, the $1 million cut in the impact. And I'd like to park that for a second and go to what I think is the third issue. The third issue is the use of fund balance. So I'd like to go to the bottom of page 104 and just talk a little bit about the fund balance. So what happens is their unrestricted cash as of 6/30/2010, their last financial statements was basically $9.3 million. So when we start to talk about some of the things you heard about the last week, these earmarks, the earmarks of these reserves are basically $3.7 million. So when you see this operational reserves of about $5.5 million, that is something that is closer to an adequate reserve level. They'd like to have 1 fiscal quarter of operating costs, which is about $6.6 million. So when you see that $1.1 million negative at the bottom, it's basically, in terms of the operating reserve, they'd like to be closer to $6.6 million than this $5.5 million. So that's just a little bit of what's happened over the last week. What I will like to do is go back to what's in the parking lot, the $1 million, the $1 million reduction strategy. I will say that we've had conversations with staff for a while during the budget development. And as Dr. Whibley suggested, maybe sometimes it's just communication. Early on in this process, again, staff-to-staff discussions, the CSB came up with a plan that would have reductions. And that reduction plan was close to about $770,000. And some of that is what I would call just operating efficiencies, much like what we've been doing. In those discussions, the question became this whole concept of what is our required match and what could be used for out of the fund balance. So somewhere in that discussions, the situation was, well, if you have about $770,000 of reduction strategies, much like other folks have done, would it be feasible to take the other roughly $250,000 out of this fund balance? And that's how we got to $1 million. Over the course of the last 10 days, it seems like there's been more of, how can I say it, not necessarily we're all in lockstep on that, but I will tell you that as we started off, that was the conversation. I will say some of the issues are the fund balance, okay? And this $5.5 million, how much of that is also earmarked for specific purposes? The question would be, how much of that fund balance is federal funds? How much of that fund balance is state funds? How much of that fund balance may have been some of the local funds that we've provided over the years that may have dropped to the bottom line? And I think that's just a legitimate discussion. I've even talked to the city attorney about, as we start to grab this group together to talk about that item one, who should be the people around the table. I want to make it expansive. I'd like to even have the city auditor around the table, because it's not necessarily a question of is it right or wrong to go into the fund balance. The question is, we wouldn't ask to use anything out of fund balance that's federal funds or state funds that are earmarked for a specific purpose. So that's where we are. I do believe the issue one is the most important issue. We should have discussion about whether or not the CSB should stand as is or bring it into the system. As you look at page 2 of 4, you start to look at some of the additional support that we already provide to CSB. It's very difficult to distinguish it, from any other department. We provide the use of our financial system, procurement, payroll functions, 1099s, human resources, data entry, legal support, IT desk support, use of the email network. So we are doing more things collaboratively than not. I would say that even as we start to look at the budget, they have some vacancies. Just like we looked at vacancies and had vacancy savings, eliminated vacant positions. As of this printing, it was basically 48 positions that are vacant at a value of $2.3 million. So again, there was nothing in this presentation that we have for you that was punitive in nature. It was basically this operation that provides services that already have a number of services from the city that are charged for those services. Is this an entity that's closer in operations to us, like many of the other examples that you'll see on page 404, when you have a single jurisdiction, CSB, and how they are more or less under the umbrella of the city as opposed to not being under the umbrella? But Mayor and Council, that's kind of sort of a 3-minute overview of where we've been the last few days with the CSB. And I will tell you that in terms of that, $5.5 million fund balance, we're not in total agreement or total understanding of what dollars are in that and what earmarks are.
Well, my question, as I have stated to you all, is can you, first off, I think the issue about whether or not CSB belongs as it is now, remains that way, or is brought in under the city, is not an issue right now when we're talking about this budget. Because to me, the issue is whether or not there are going to be people that are not being served, that are at need, and whether or not by not serving them, we are going to, down the road, have to pay more money. Now, we all heard that on Wednesday. You know, I also heard from you when you presented the budget that there would not be services cut. I just want somebody to tell me what is gonna be the impact on the people that are served by the CSB.
Well, Dr. Whibley, I'd start off by saying that I don't know what the impact is initially when we had the discussion about the first $770,000. The concept was, again, this is streamlining that would have occurred anyway. If you go to this first table on page 1 of 4, in 2011, there was $477,000 of reserve funds that were used as a part of the 2011 budget. So I understand exactly what you're saying. At some point, I do believe it's very difficult to answer number 2, the whole $1 million, without understanding number 3, and that's the use of fund balance.
Reserve funds, they just pulled that.
So there is
5%
no
of it.
mandate any place that says you have to have a quarter of a fiscal year's money in reserve?
That's where they'd like to be.
What is
No, I know that, but
mandate?
is there a mandate or it's just a general principle?
If it is a mandate, it has not been explained to us as a mandate versus a goal where they'd like to be. And if it is a mandate, I'd like somebody to tell me.
Do you think it's
that.
an appropriate goal?
Oh, I would hope that anybody who wants to have a financially sound operation, I'm gonna be in support of that. If you wanna have, if it's good to have a quarter of reserves, that's great. The question is, if a part of the reserves have been budget balancing opportunities in the past, I don't understand why now it would be so difficult to have $250,000 out of that as a strategy, as we're struggling right now as a city to balance this budget.
And I asked this question last time, so if they choose to cut services and not use the fund balance to pay for the offset of this $1 million, that is the choice of the board. So what my question is for those that have been on council, that the board of the CSB technically serves at the pleasure of city council. Am I wrong with that?
They're appointed, I said.
They're appointed. So if we make the decision to cut their budget by $1 million and we ask them to not cut services because to use the fund balance, technically we can do that because they serve at the pleasure of city council. And if they choose to not do that, then there's a kind of a conflict. I mean, I'm trying to wrap my arms around this because what I saw at the hearing, I don't want to cut services either, Tara. I don't, but I saw some arrogance. And I'm using that word very strongly. The letter that was written, I thought was arrogant, that this is an appointed board that serves at the pleasure of city council. And
It's not,
I'm not understanding it, Paul, because it really bothers me that they're coming back and almost lobbying us. And I understand there's that lobby out there, but when you have board members who are coming and saying to us, I'm bothered by that because they're not making concessions, just like every other organization in the city is having to make concessions in this tight budget time. You know, you don't see school board members, you know, nailing us and writing nasty letters about cutting or not addressing the funding issue at the schools. It bothers me. It really, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. And that letter that was written, and I guess some of you did not get it, but
We all got it.
I got it at my personal mail, but I thought was disrespectful in a sense, and I don't know. I think it was out of line with attacking you and basically saying that we don't care about the citizens. I don't understand that when they have money sitting there, and there's obviously some confusion of that money, but I think most of us around this table know what that money is, and it's just a choice. It's a choice they're making, and it's almost like they're threatening us to cut services so that we don't cut the $1 million. And I just don't like that tone. I don't like that that's being said. I've never had any issue with CSB. I think they do great things, but now they've made it worse by kind of changing the tone of the discussion.
We do appoint the board, but I'm not sure Bernard would agree that they serve it, at our pleasure. I mean, we couldn't remove them without cause. And so, they're appointed for terms, and they're supposed to use their independent judgment. They are not just the policy board, they're an administrative board, their fiduciary responsibility is to the community services that they're supposed to administer. So I think they have a certain right to lobby us for sure. My feelings are much the same as yours about the tone of that letter. And, but it looks to me like, when you look at what they're doing here, Terry, I mean, we've asked them to basically take about a 3.3 or 3.5% haircut. We did every other department in the city was 5% just about. And I know we're talking about our most vulnerable people, but it looks to me like they could move into their, into their reserve, and if they feel strongly enough.
This is
Plus,
not
Mayor, they're
service.
looking to upgrade their they're moving into facilities that, some of us disagree with, that they need to be paying rents, and some of us don't think are necessary.
They're not moving into that facility,
Well,
that you
they
didn't
were.
agree with.
They were.
Yeah, but,
I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but my question is in their budget, have you looked at this year's budget?
We do not, you mean 2011?
2012.
We have not been given a copy of the 2012 budget.
So they didn't offer that up to you?
I don't make this come across the wrong way. We have had discussions. They did share with us this last block is directly from a binder they gave us about 20 about their budget in general. But I don't have a 26 million
But do
in
you
26
think that
million
they've
on budget.
budgeted reserves for 2012, I guess, already before we.
My understanding, Councilman Nguyen, is that they may have to dip into reserves to get through 2011. I don't know to what.
Well, I think we're telling, they budgeted using 477,000.
Right, maybe above that. But while we've had conversations about their budget, I don't have a soup to nuts FY 2012 proposed budget for CSB.
Well,
Mr.
maybe
Manager,
they'll
I
get to-
think that's something that you need. I mean,
I would think so,
seriously,
too.
they have, there's been a whole lot of information in the news about how they've poorly spent money and the things that have gone on over there. And I think that if we're funding them, then we at least need to see how you at least need to see how they're spending their money. Because we're funding them, I mean, at least in some part. So we wanna know how they're spending the money.
I would never argue with you looking at the budget, but a comment like that there've been a whole bunch of poorly spending money is inappropriate and not correct. I mean, it is the issue we all know about the employee. And then there was a controversy about a bonus for the director because she was doing 3 people's jobs because she had to let 3 people go. That's it.
Yeah, but
That's
we've
it,
got people
Angela.
here
Or the
that are
consulting,
doing,
yeah.
we've got people
But
here that are
again,
doing 3
because there
people's
were
jobs
short
and
staff.
we've got people working in the city that are doing 3
But we
people's
also
jobs
have
and they're not getting bonuses
a huge
either.
increase in the number of people that are gonna need services. And I'm okay if you guys can tell me, and I'm supportive of the fact everybody's gotta take a hit. It's hard times here. But as long as you can show me, or maybe you can't, but I'm concerned that, believe me, if we're not providing funds for people that need it, they're gonna have to get services other places, and it's gonna cost us a lot more. And we've gotta be very careful that we're not, just like Marcus, you have done, I think you've done a fabulous job about not saying, okay, everybody gets a 10% cut or whatever. You've looked at what's necessary for services, and
Terry,
I was concerned that we may be not providing for our most in need citizens, and it's gonna come around and bite us.
Terry,
I don't
agree.
take the need for the citizens who have disabilities and those kinds of needs that are citizens who are vulnerable. I don't take that need for granted. I lived that with a mother with disabilities and mental incapacities. So I don't take that need for granted. But when the Community Services Board has got $500,000 sitting somewhere and they're saying, well, if you guys don't give us $1 million, we're gonna cut services.
Where's the half?
I'm sorry, $5 million,
$5 million.
I'm sorry. They got $5 million and they're saying, if you don't give us $1 million, we're gonna cut services, and then they're gonna turn around and make us look like the bad guys because we didn't give them $1 million, and then they've got it somewhere. I'd like to have a $5 million reserve account that if I don't get paid, I can go to.
Marcus, I would just ask you, because at the end of the day, the people that are most vulnerable citizens shouldn't be caught in the crosshairs at the end of the day. And so just listening to you, to me, it appears that it needs to be a point of clarity on some issues. Because I think Mr. Riddick said, you know, with this reserve, this operational reserve, you know, and you said it earlier, how much of that is federal, how much of that is state, and how much of that is money that we gave that fall into the bottom. And so understanding that will give us a true snapshot, because I think that, you know, you haven't been able to get to that part of the conversation yet. But again, I don't want to adversely affect those folk that need these core services.
But back to her point, if they've got that money, they can take what we've got. And they can give the services and give our staff time to work with theirs, to work out. I mean, they can take whatever $100,000 they need.
Well, that's just a conversation he needs to have with them.
And let Marcus and his staff and the auditor have a get in there and find out where it really is and work with them so that they can provide the service.
Well, then that's just the way the communication piece. And I guess that's a conversation you need to have with them. If we find that, you know, we need to replenish this, then we will.
And I think the burden ought to be on community services board. They put out the notion that somehow what you've done is punitive, and nobody around here would believe it would be punitive to the community services board. But the burden ought to be on them to say we can't use these funds to fill in any, you know, cost for services, you know, instead of, and they've got to have some Norfolk City money sitting in this pot, you know, and so.
This is the email again from Maureen Womack she sent me because of the citizen who called that office, said that I was giving out wrong information, but I was just reading what Marcus had in the budget book. They said these reserves, has reserves that are derived from federal and state funding sources that are encumbered. These reserves are not intended to be used to support or sustain ongoing operations. The proposed budget cuts will directly impact Norfolk's mental health court, the only one in Virginia, and our service provisions in the juvenile detention center and the juvenile court. These two programs are not core or mandated services and have heretofore been funded through city dollars. We will also be limiting our charitable care. We presented these impacts to the city prior to the announced proposal. This is the email that she sent to me, and that's when an alarm went in my head with the concern that they were cutting services after reading that the budget $1 million wouldn't cut services. So this has now turned into a he said, she said argument, and I think some of this is because of just playing a political game of making sure that they're not going to lose $1 million.
When you've got a $26.5 million budget, the notion that you can't streamline any services, are there any savings in that budget, or you're just going to cut the city's mental health care, the mental health court and a couple of these other things, because, you know, we're not giving them every penny they did a year ago when everybody's taking some sort of cuts. It's just, I mean, it really defies belief that they can't find some efficiencies, and they know the world we're living in.
It's called right sizing.
You know, or whatever you want to call it.
If they had come out and said,
But, and it just lends more momentum to the notion that we have to take this organization inside the nation. Because we shouldn't be having this discussion about, you know, I mean.
if they had come out to us and said, we're going to continue to provide services, we're going to have to pull out of reserve, we're going to need to get with Marcus and his staff and really look at this thing and be able to justify, we know we've got a budget to make, and we will adjust for next year or whatever after we've looked through all the alternatives. That would have been much preferable to, we're going to eliminate this, and this, but Norfolk pays for that, and we're not going to take care of our people when we got $9 million. I don't care what it's
All right, so I think that you've got some work to do with them, but, you know, short of them convincing you that they can't use these monies, then I think the budget stays where it is.
Well, you know, one of the things, you know, this is, you know, long-term. And you talked about the possibility of bringing it in-house. The other possibility is this council being the board. We had talked about that within RHA some years ago. in terms of, we're unhappy with the way that the board is demonstrating, then one of the things we might want to look at. I mean, if we're dissatisfied with them, then the issue is, you know, from an expenditure standpoint, how do we go forward and understand the dollars that are being
Before we
utilized?
make any judgment.
I'm not saying I'm not saying making any judgment. But again, I said, all I did, and I know that you have to have folk from various backgrounds on the board. But again, if you're gonna have this conversation about, you know, looking at personalities in terms of, I mean, because again, to me, at the end of the day, the persons that I think that we really should be concerned about is those citizens that may need those core services, you know. And so, regardless of what the gentleman said about our manager, at the end of the day, we got to get past that and understand it ain't about him. It's about these persons that need these core services. And at the end of the day, I just share with Marcus, you know, doing due diligence, and as you know, what he just alluded to, like the mayor said, that some of those dollars have to be ours. You know, if you some of those dollars again that have trickled down from some may be federal, some may be state, and some may be ours. And then we make that argument. But I asked them to do is due diligence. At the end of the day, those our most fragile citizens have to be taken care of.
Okay. We got about 15 minutes. If there's some budget issues you want to put on the table for the manager, we're trying to let everybody have one shot at it real quick. Anything, Andy, that you want to, or some clarification on? Or we'll come back to you if you want. Paul, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm still at the same position I was last week, and the statement that I didn't get the support that I needed is the fact that the employees didn't get the support that we need. I really believe that we need to do something for our employees. And I was thinking during the week since we met the last time, and I kind of likened the sentiments of my fellow members of council to Marie Antoinette. You know, let them eat cake. You know, gas is $4 a gallon, and Mr. Burford, maybe somebody making $90,000 might be glad they got a job, but somebody at $26,000 who has, you know, 1 or 2 children, they need some money. And while I'm gonna be as gentle as I can, while I didn't expect my West Side friends to jump up to, you know, try to give our employees a wage increase, I was sort of disappointed with, not disappointed, but surprised that Mr. Smeagol and Ms. Williams, and I know you've had some pretty good cases lately, but you remember the lead time.
Paul, I wasn't here when you brought it up, but I'm 100% supportive of your initiative. We don't always agree, but I agree with that.
Somehow, we need to let our employees know that we are thinking about them. And, you know, and if you just think about some things, if, you know, that employees can do to you, waste, negligence, inefficiency, that adds up to dollars. And 3 years down the road with things being increased the way that they have been increased, my biggest concern is that we need to do something for our employees. And I just kind of wish that somehow, you know, we've always been able to come up with some pretty good formulas. Paul, you've been able to sit down at the end of the table and do some things. And I just really believe that we just can't continue to say, okay, because A, B, and C, and nationwide, nobody's getting raises. We got to take care of the people who take care of us. We got to take care of the people who take care of our customers. Our citizens are our customers. And I really believe we have to, and I apologize because you weren't here, but we really need to do something for our employees.
The manager in his budget is looking to find money at the end of the budget cycle to make
And that's when, what's the
performance-based
end, you
salary.
talking about next May or what?
No, I'm talking about before June.
Okay.
But isn't
Yeah,
that, is it
and
a
I
bonus or a salary increase? Is it a
It's a
percentage
salary
increase,
adjustment,
or is it
it's
a bonus?
performance-based.
Yes.
We're trying to stay away from the word bonus.
I know.
Because it has terrible connotations to it, but we're trying to get people, we're trying to get money to employees.
Okay, is it a one-time shot of money, or is it a percent increase that will continue with their paycheck?
I would love to have the flexibility, you know, with the percentage increases, it's ongoing. The one time is just that. The moment you do the percentage increase, it causes to have a bigger gap in 2013. But as the mayor said, we are so supportive as administration. We're trying to bind that before June 30, 2011.
Put money in their pocket now.
And maybe, Mr. Riddick, you missed where I advocated for every employee
Oh, yeah.
to
I
receive
didn't miss it.
something.
I don't remember
I'm
you saying
always, I always like to see our employees.
Wait, Tommy, whoa, Tommy, stop.
I had a question on.
Wait a minute. Barkley, you're next.
Yeah, I just want to thank
Okay.
Marcus. I've addressed a number of
Okay.
things on fire.
Terry, you okay?
Well, Mr. Riddick, I think you weren't here when I spoke to Harry. The conversation was a lot deeper than that. I said that I had spoken with the employees that I had spoken with. We have been through quite the last couple of years in City Hall. Employees have worked very hard and diligently. But there's been the uncertainty with folk, the risk and people, the possibilities of people losing their jobs. And most of the guys that I talk to say, man, I know it's difficult. You know, when are we getting a raise? But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm glad to be able to feed my family.
You ever
And
heard
so
of
that's
pop and
what,
con?
but that's what I spoke with Harry.
Pop and con.
I spoke with Harry based on what was told to me
Right.
in terms of people just happen to glad to have a job. Now, if folk gonna make the suggestions that, you know, we need to give our folk a little this or a little that, then be bold and say we need to raise the real estate tax. Let's not give them a little bump. You know, if we're serious about putting folk back on their feet, then like I said, I always thought we should have been around 114 when we were cutting deep. And I've said that to the mayor on numerous occasions about that. But again, if we're real serious, don't just give them something to tease them.
Yeah.
I mean, do something that's creative, innovative, and put it on the table, and start the process now.
I would be for that too, but that is a continued expense.
At the end of the day, all I want to do was brutally honest with the folk that's out there, understanding that we weren't going to get there this year. But the possibility of the year after, setting ourselves up to be able to get back on good footing, to be able to really give our employees the compensation that they so deserve. You know, and by the way, the gentleman that I was talking to happened to be the guys in our public work, the guys that pick up our trash here, because I see them all the time. So those are conversations that I was having. Again, the only other thing that I would say as it pertains to the this budget is that I would respectfully ask that we put that money in the remaining shoto set aside until we understand what's going on. And I support all of our employees.
Angela?
Actually, two things. One is, I've never made any bones about supporting our employees. So like I said, I'm sorry that you missed that
Everybody's
last.
covered it.
Well, I tell you, people are backing up.
No, we are, because, you know,
This
Marcus
TV
has
is doing
said,
wonderful things for our town.
Marcus, I know you have said in the
Maybe we should have
employee
campaign banners. with that.
community outreach meetings that we
We could sell
are looking for
advertisement.
money for our employees. And I just want to give you an opportunity to do your job and not try to micromanage you into how that happens, because you have millions of dollars to work with, so, anyway. The second thing is, on we got an email about the summer camp programs. When we talked about doing summer camp programs before with the Parks and Recreation being in charge of those, we were talking about supervising, and we were talking about certifications that are required for the folks who are actually going to be, you know, the people we had in Parks and Rec may not have had the certifications that they needed in order to perform the services that we were providing. Is that something that's going to be rectified in this, in the summer camps that we're going to be offering this summer?
Sure. I believe the certifications were more so with the before and after programs.
Okay.
And the concern was with the summer camps, some of the staff to children ratio which I do believe that while we don't have a number of additional staff, what has happened is Darrell has reclassified some vacant positions in order to help on the rec side. Is that accurate?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Not as much as he would like.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks. My question to go along with Mr. Riddick is, how much would a 3% raise be for our employees if we spread it out, a 1.5% 1 year and then a 1.5%, like Chesapeake did? Chesapeake did that for their employees.
Okay, 1% general wage increase is about 1.6 million.
Okay.
So we're talking, that's 4.5, about 4.8 million.
Okay. And so the cigarette tax, how much money does the cigarette tax generate when you rate? We're increasing it 10%, or that's the proposal, is to increase the cigarette tax 10%.
Right.
I'm sorry, I don't smoke, so it doesn't faze me, but.
There's a limit to what we can.
Right, I wanted to know how we compare to surrounding cities. Is there potential to increase that a little bit more and bring in some money that could either go to capital improvement for schools or for employee raises? I don't know how we compare to the surrounding.
Right, if you look at R2, the back page of R2, basically with this additional 10 cents, we would be up there with Newport News, it's at 75 cents. Hampton did say 75 cents, but when you start to come south, Southampton roads, we would be higher than Virginia Beach at 60, Portsmouth at 60, Suffolk at 50, and Chesapeake at 50.
And that 10% yield is coming down about a year one.
I think it's a little north of, I think it's about $600,000, but that's also built into it that you're not going to get all of it. You know, people are going to change their behavior. So is that right, Patricia, about 650? 650.
Okay. I know that actually came out of one of the forums, the citizens. The courthouse, the budget doesn't really, we're new, so we don't have the full picture on the courthouse. It's never been presented to us. I know there was a lot of controversy about whether or not we should build a $140 million courthouse or $90 million. I've heard that. So I don't know, we put $19 million in the budget for this year for it. I don't understand how that works. You know, are we paying towards an amount? Are we still stuck with a $140 million courthouse? Are costs going to come down? Maybe that could be a presentation, or if you want to send it to the new council members so we can get a better understanding of how that works.
Okay.
That was an increase because I think in the proposed budget last year, there was a budget of about $16 million for the courthouse, and it looks like it's increased. Am I wrong with that?
Exactly the same.
Did it stay the same?
It stayed the same, 19 million in the planned last year and 19 million for.
Or maybe I'm confused, the courtyard area, that was eliminated out of the budget, but it was moved.
And standalone.
Standalone, it was standalone, but now it's part of the overall courthouse budget.
Sure, if you look at the courthouse, about $140 million. And what will happen in 2012 with the approval of this budget, you will be able to break ground on the courthouse in 2012.
In 2012?
In this upcoming budget.
Okay.
We'll break ground.
I mean, I know we need it. I just want to know if we're getting the biggest bang for a buck, or are we, can we do it at cheaper? Construction costs down compared to the original estimate.
That's what I was
we
curious
would hope
about too.
I think we're hoping
Yes.
There probably couldn't be a better time to go to it.
Right, I know if we can push it to start building now, it seems like this is the best time to build.
Well, there is some thought, Tommy, and I've got briefed on it. And there is some thought that with the current economy and current climate, that $140 million as is most likely could come in less because of that.
Okay. The final one, if you can provide an update, that'd be great, or something for the, we've talked before about the boat tax in Norfolk and whether or not it's a detriment to actually, are we getting the money out of it when it was increased to $1.50? Barclay probably knows the history of this more. One time it was just a $25 sticker fee, then it turned into a tax, but talking to the marinas down in Ocean View, there's actually been a decrease. People are moving their boats to Virginia Beach where the tax is a lot less. And I'm wondering if the loss of that, the other services that we provide to boats, like gas tax and the things that come out of that, if we're just actually losing money now with that. So looking into seeing whether or not it's helping us or hurting us with it. Are we generating the revenue that we're losing because of the service, the other services that come along with it, boat repair, things like that? And maybe we could use some of that boat tax money to build the new boat ramp over at Lake Whitehurst.
That's a good one,
Okay.
I'm with you, Tom.
Marcus, are you going to explore seeing if we
You
can
get
take a
that, Tommy,
small
you get it.
increase on our rate of return in the water fund?
We were talking with Kristen this morning, and
She's going to tell you no, but I mean,
I guess, the rate of increase, the ROI, the biggest.
yeah, I mean, there's an 8.5 million. If you could move that to another $250,000 and, help get some revenue for, what we're talking about for employees or something. I mean, I don't think anybody around here, the public or anybody would even know another $250,000 there.
You're not talking about raising water rates.
No, of course
You're
not.
talking about the
No,
amount that
not-
we pay.
Yeah, which has been flat forever. Daryl, I mean, is that gonna, we're gonna have a catastrophe if we took another two? There used to be a scam somewhere about the rate of return, but that was years ago, the return on investment. in the water fund.
It's not a credit strength to change that number. It's actually a credit weakness that it's not a formula-based calculation.
It's just a flat fee we charge the water system year after year after year. Why not charge it another $250,000? Well, what do you think about it?
It's a return increase, I guess that's.
I mean, we haven't changed
Top
it
line
in
change.
15 years. And the system's gotten stronger and stronger. Marcus, there's no money for the Virginia First Cities. It's like $30,000 or $40,000. We got lobbied pretty hard by people from Richmond and other cities about Norfolk being the Virginia First City, and why aren't we in this consortium? Will you just review that again? I mean, I think as really the core city, Richmond is in it, Norfolk is in it. I mean, Norfolk dropped out of it. Understand there was some thought that maybe we didn't need the lobbying expertise or something, but there's a leadership issue here for 30
One of the problems, we weren't involved. We didn't have anybody on the committee.
Maybe we ought to make sure we're at the table there, but
Yeah, I think we need it. You ask me, I think we need it.
it's $40,000, 44.
Yeah.
The other thing is this Chamber of Commerce sports activity thing that Mr. Ankerson has been a part of, that does the Special Olympics. We stopped funding that. That was like $35,000. We stopped funding that a couple years ago. And you want to say anything, Barkley?
No, I think they bring a lot of economic development.
I mean, that's a small, the idea would be to check and see if Virginia Beach is going to fund it. If they're funding it, I mean, that's the Special Olympics.
Can they use some of the money that's coming from the dollar increase on the bed tax? Could they apply? That's $1 million? I mean, because if it's providing economic development, they're filling beds.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
They
That
work
would-
hard, that's a.
Right, Tommy? Good man. Okay, that's a perfect use of that.
Remember that, Tommy.
Okay.
You just got a kudu.
Okay.
And it was it's captured on television.
Scratch that one.
I'm gonna play that over and over tonight before I go to bed.
It'll be on your face.
She's gonna stand up and sing the Star
About that money
Spangled Banner in a second.
about the money for sand, I mean, don't you think that's a bit?
Whoa,
I don't know if it's good or
No,
bad.
I'm just kidding.
We're not messing with the sand.
I mean, we can find a cheaper way to make sand out.
You're gonna give us something on the Arts
Yes.
Culture Consortium? Marcus, some of these outfits actually over 2 years have taken a 10% cut. Is it your intention out of this consortium to balance their budgets with that money to start off? It looks like about $500,000.
Yeah, that was the initial intent. I think that really doesn't provide the carrot, if you will, for
It
collaboration.
provides $1 million.
Sure. The thing that we struggle with a bit is what's the impact of the additional 5% cut? So they were ready for a 5% cut,
Right.
and we put another 5 on top.
That's right, they went to 10%.
Yes.
Well, you had said in the budget that you're gonna fund part of it from the general fund, from public amenities, and from this bed tax.
Right.
Do you wanna take them to 5% with some more money out of the public amenities?
I think that would help greatly in terms of collaboration.
And it wouldn't, okay, well, let's do that. Take care.
We're supposed to get two things.
Okay, that's it. We're at 7 o'clock.
Because we can't advertise.
Andy was
And the problem
Okay.
actually is when we
Andy,
actually-
do you have some, I'm sorry, we'll wait.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna, I came late, I'm not gonna say something. I can get
Okay.
You're such a gentleman.
Told Marcus to be careful about those one-on-one conversations before.
I had a great time with it.
Everybody gets their things fixed.
It worked out
Only
just
get that
fine.
once a year though.
Okay, all right, let's go. That's it.